Well, good afternoon, alumni and friends. I am Kashima Pearson, Assistant Director of Alumni Communities and Volunteer Engagement within the Alumni Relations Department, and I am very excited to welcome all of you to our Mind Your Career webinar entitled Break Your Brain, facilitated by Jen Wells Q, an alumnus of the university. A little bit about Jen. She is a mindful leadership coach, yoga teacher, and humanitarian. Jen coaches people all around the world, from military special forces to Hollywood execs to Grammy Award winning artists, to create thrilling lives without burnout using her Life by Design framework. And we are very excited to have her here and present to us this afternoon. For today's webinar, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box, and we will try to get to them during the Q&A portion of the webinar. And then following today's session, a survey will pop up, so please be sure to share your thoughts as you are leaving. And then lastly, we will send a recording and a few additional resources to all attendees who registered by the end of the week. So please be sure to keep a lookout for that email. All right, so with that said, please welcome Jen Wells Q.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here with you today and share something that is very dear and near to my heart, which is this Life by Design framework. It is an exercise of mindfulness, a way of slowing down and reflecting on what it is that you truly want. So as we start off today, first, I just really love knowing where people are in the world. So if you want to drop in the chat where you're joining from, I always think that's a really lovely way of seeing how many people we can bring together in this new Zoom day and age. And then I'm going to, in the meantime, bring up my slide deck so that we can dive right in. There we go. All right. Can we see the screen? Does it all look good before I jump in? Yes, excellent. Beautiful. So, Life by Design. The first question that I want to start off with is, why are you here? I think this is such a simple, powerful question before we begin anything, whether it's a workshop that you're attending, whether it's a class that you enroll in, whether it's a job that you take. Why are you here? Is there a particular area of life that you want to address in the next hour of your time? Is there a particular dream latent that maybe you've told someone, maybe you haven't told anyone about? Or maybe there's a particular frustration you have that you really want to dive into and see how you can change, whether it's in your income, your lifestyle, your career, your relationships. I ask you at the beginning of this to really hone in on why you're here. And if you can choose where you place your attention, then you have so much more opportunity to get value out of this workshop and anything really. So while you're thinking about that, I'll start with a brief story that I've been thinking about recently. As Kashima mentioned, I coach military special forces, and these are people who are retiring out of the military into civilian life. And it's such a powerful reminder of the importance of that slowing down to intentionally choose what next. Now, sometimes this choice is offered more forcefully upon us, such as when you are leaving a job or graduating from a program and the time is now. Other times we get to create that urgency for ourselves of choosing what's next, creating that pause in order to think thoughtfully about what comes next and what we want to come next. So it's in working with these men and women that has been such a powerful reminder of the exercise of mindfulness. And I think a great parallel to they're coming from a world in which everything is defined. These are the goals, these are the objectives that are set out, and the role within the military and such a massive institution is to follow. And I think that's quite similar in a lot of our lives, whether we recognize it or not, that we're given metrics to succeed by, whether that's in school or in work, demands on our attention from friends and family. We are given all of this input as to how we should show up, where we should show up, what success looks like. And this space, this next hour of time, is an opportunity to slow down and self-define what that is for you. So rather than what someone else wants from you or for you, an opportunity to ask yourself what you want for your life. So a quick roadmap of what we're up to today. We're going to talk a little bit about max value and how to get more out of this time and space, the importance of creating your vision, how to actually define what you want. It's one thing to think about it, sounds lovely, but the actual practice of slowing down and questions we get to ask ourselves to hone into those deeper parts of ourselves of what we truly desire. And then we'll talk a little bit about strategy and next steps once we've created that clarity. So this workshop is for you if you want to create clear goals for the year and a strategy to get there. You want to grow in your self-leadership. You want to get clear on what you personally want and define your own version of success. And you want a sense of purpose to your efforts, that what you're doing, what you're investing your time and your energy in is purposeful and meaningful to you. That's for you if I think a lot of us can relate to feeling unrelenting pressure in so many different areas of our lives, whether it's in work, relationships, to have purpose, to have income, to remember to meditate, wake up on time, all of these things that we should do and are supposed to do to live a good life. And that can all add up to the adverse, which is instead of feeling peaceful and more slowed down and clear, we actually feel more frenzied and burnt out and overwhelmed. So perhaps you feel a little bit overworked and stressed out with competing responsibilities, or there's this misalignment between the way that you live your life out here, the job you show up to, the person you are in relationship with how you feel in here and what you're really craving more of in your life. And maybe no matter how hard you try, imagine if you're on this webinar, you're signing up for the things, you're doing the personal development, you're doing the personal growth, you're reading the books, and somehow it doesn't quite feel like enough. So if you relate to any of that, then this workshop is going to be so valuable for you. It is not for you if you already have super specific goals and measurements, timelines that you're really happy with, and you're like, this is what I want to create for my life. I've got it mapped out, and I feel good about that, and I don't want any other changes at this point. And you're happy with your current levels of leadership and impact. You feel really thrilled with where you're at. So this workshop is really designed to expand, open up, and grow. And if that's not what you're looking for, then probably can find another resource. Quick background before we dive in. And this workshop will be very interactive. So I'm going to front load with a bit of information, a bit of framing, and then we're going to get into some exercises. I'm going to create time and space to really slow down and think about some of these questions and how you might answer them. So where does this training, where does this framework come from? I've been a coach for several years. I have traveled all over the world in multiple languages, in work and travel, and met people in so many different countries and lives that they're leading, and have pulled these questions from those conversations in addition to my studies at Chicago and in Beijing, and really intertwining that with my own practice of yoga over the last 20 years and this idea of mindfulness. Where can we create mindfulness in our lives, not just on a yoga mat, but in the way that we show up in relationship with others, in the way that we show up in relationship with ourselves, and whether this is applied to humanitarian work or whether it's in corporate or entertainment, whether it's in the military, whether it's in the US or elsewhere, these questions are all going to be applicable. So if you haven't already, invitation to grab pen and paper can be really beautiful to use something physical. Typing otherwise works. And quiet space, if you're not in a quiet space, beautiful, it's recorded. You can come back and pause and listen to it later. And an open mind. So I say this, and I'll go a little deeper into this, an open mind, because a lot of the things that I say today will not be new to you. It's probably not new to you to question, what do I want? But the idea to come in with a beginner's mindset. What if you asked yourself this question anew today? What might come up when you give yourself permission to ask this question with a beginner's mindset, with an open hand? What emerges when you decide you don't already have the answer? So this acronym FAST, I really love, is from Coach Jim Quick, who came up with it and is a really helpful tool to go into anything and get max value out of anything, really, whether it's a book, a workshop, class, relationship, an experience. And the first one is to forget. So forget what you think you already know about designing your life, about setting goals, about what you want, to create that blank canvas just for this hour. The second one, A, is to be active and decide what that means for you. Maybe that's actively asking questions in the chat or the Q&A. We've got time set aside at the end of our workshop today to answer those questions and dive in together. Maybe it's taking notes. Maybe it's a commitment to who you want to share this with after, which gets us into teach. State, the next one is to notice and choose the state of being that you are in, and that's both your environment as well as your spirit and your physical body. So maybe taking a deep breath, even in this moment, to breathe deeply in and exhale out and arrive into this space of exploration, of creativity, of play. And the final one here is teach, which in order to really master any information, the best way is to teach someone else. So perhaps you listen to this workshop with an eye towards who can you teach these questions? Who can you teach these tools to after today? Maybe a partner, a best friend, a family member, a colleague. So what is life by design? Why do this? Being in this world that's constantly vying for our attention, whether it's commercials, it's meetings, it's back-to-back events, it's the pressure to be participating in community and community service and family and relationships in all of the ways, and comes back to this essential question from Rumi: who am I in the midst of this thought traffic? When we have so much noise coming in from all of these places and people around us, we lose track of ourselves. And so these are the questions that we're here to answer today, is to slow down, to filter out some of the noise and come into who am I in the midst of this thought traffic, in the midst of these responsibilities, in the midst of all of the shoulds of our lives. I should have this job. I should have this income. I should be busier, promoted. I should be married. I should, all of the shoulds. And when we quiet those away and come back to what's true only for what's true in a way that can only be defined by ourselves. The primary way that I think about this that offers immediate relief to me and to many of the people I talk to is to think of the two jobs that most of us are doing. And the first job is the job we're hired to do. So that's maybe in relationship, that's maybe like the actual job that we get paid for. And the second job is all of the work we do throughout the day to show up in the way that we think other people want us to. So it's not even necessarily the way other people actively want us to. A boss says, do this thing, or I want you to be this way. It's our own interpretation projected onto them of what we think. And this can be incredibly exhausting on top of what are already probably quite immense pressures and responsibilities in the things that you've taken on in your life. And so this concept of two jobs, of hustle culture, of seeking productivity, of seeking success rather than fulfillment, is often what gets in the way of this idea of life by design, life by personal design, to create something that's truly thrilling to us and not what is supposed to be thrilling because it was defined by something external. So oftentimes our way of handling this is to settle. It is what it is. I've got my job, and then I've got my home life. I've got my personal, spiritual, friend, family self, and then I've got my work self, and these separate personas that we move between and just accept that this is what it is. Sometimes we fight it and feel this ongoing angst between what we're doing in one part of our lives and what we really want to be doing in another. And then sometimes we force it and try to make congruency where there isn't. I really love this job. And we seek out all the things that we think we love about it in order to justify keeping something in our lives, whether it's a job or experience or other commitment we've held on to because we're supposed to. And there's this sense of force. But each of these feel a little bit like Sisyphus and the stone. We're just pushing and pushing. And so I want to invite you into a different way of approaching our lives, our goals. And this is before we even set goals, right? I take the time to really dive into these questions before I just ask, what are your goals for the year? What do you want to create? Because oftentimes then we default into what we think our goals should be or what goals look good to have, whether it's a bigger number, a bigger job, a bigger income, something flashy, which doesn't, maybe the dream, but maybe it doesn't actually correspond. And to create some freedom around removing what should I do? Removing even, and this is a favorite coach question of what am I capable of? And removing even that, because maybe what you're capable of still doesn't quite reach what you actually desire, which is what do I want? I think if you take no other question away from today, my hope is that you take away this question of what do I want? What do I want for my day? What do I want for my relationships? What do I want for my impact and my legacy? What do I want for the way that people experience me when we're in relationship? What do I want? So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this question today. And the importance of starting with desire is this idea that nothing changes if nothing changes. So if you want your life to look a different way, and oftentimes we are waiting for that to happen because that's kind of what society has taught us. If you just keep plugging away, you will graduate from middle school to high school to college. You will graduate from entry level to next level if you just keep plugging away, when that may not reach the root level of changing a sense of joy, fulfillment, satisfaction, passion, purpose. So creating for yourself what you want to change. But before we can choose action, we need to have a vision. What are we working towards? What's worth enduring change or hardship or challenge? What action are we willing to take? And uh, that comes from vision. And where does vision come from but desire? Something that we want, something that's worth pursuing, something that we desire creating in our lives. So the crux of today's workshop will be tapping into what it is that you desire. So when you do this, there's a couple of things that happen. You set the focus. So our brain is working constantly throughout the day, and we get to choose what problems we give it to solve. So if you ever notice that you are trying to meditate or washing the dishes and the brain starts wandering off to, how do I arrange childcare pickup next week? Or what is it that's really going to move the needle in this project at work? It defaults to the problems that are the loudest in our mind, which are not always the ones that are most important to us. And so choosing for ourselves, what is it that we want to feed our brains to be working on in the background when we go to sleep, when we're taking a walk, what's worth spending that extra brain power on. And I would suggest or invite that to be around life, legacy, and impact and desire, to revert to these questions. Um, to choose your own goals rather than having someone else define them for you, because I'm sure, as with me, as with many of us, there are people ready and willing to let us know what our goals should be because they've got it figured out on our behalf. And finally, to avoid Trojan horse opportunities. So these are things that come your way that look really wonderful. Maybe it's an opportunity to be on a board or to speak on a stage or to get published or to take on a volunteer position or leadership position, and it looks wonderful. Why wouldn't you want it? You really should take it. And yet, maybe it's not in alignment with your vision. And while it looks shiny and beautiful, will actually be a more circuitous route to where you want to get. But if you don't know where you're trying to go, all of these Trojan horses will look shiny and pretty, and we end up on this beautiful windy road. Okay, so this is where we get to dive into a bit of workshopping. These are the categories. We'll go down one by one. These are the categories that I'm going to invite you to consider. It might be worth just screenshotting this page as something for you to write down the categories for and think about where in your life do you want to bring attention on a regular basis. So once a year is beautiful, but I would even recommend twice a year, 3 or 4 times a year to review each of these areas of your life and just notice. Notice where you want to bring more attention. Notice where you feel really solid and you want to divert energy or effort somewhere else. Notice where maybe you feel a bit stymied or held back. Notice where you're really thriving and you're proud of yourself and you have an opportunity to celebrate. So we're going to go one by one through each of these, and I'll give about a minute or two with each one to dive in a little bit deeper into these sections. So my question for you as we go through will be, what do I want to experience? So as we look at each of these, not just think, I want a beautiful new car. Okay, that's great. I want to experience gifting my parents a new car to replace the one that they have been using broken down for years or that needs to be replaced. And I want to experience the joy of them knowing that they're safe and provided for. So getting really specific with what you want to experience in each of these categories. Another way to think of it is, who do I want to impact or experience this with? So an idea of giving a gift, maybe it's who you're giving it to. Maybe it's something for your family or for your colleagues. Maybe it's for your community, that what you really want to experience is founding a nonprofit or moving a needle in access to school materials. And finally, to consider as we move through these, what is possible when fear is gone? If just for a moment we removed the idea of failure, of looking bad, of being judged, of not being on the right track, we took all of that away. And in this space that's just for you and no one else is looking at your paper unless you choose to share it, what is possible when fear is gone? And instead we move from a place of love, that our goal is not safety out of fear, but generosity, generativity, creativity out of love. So the first one up, and just to keep track of time, I'll keep a quick eye here. I will spend about a minute. And my invitation is the free rights. When you think of your livelihood, when you think of how money comes to you, when you think of this exchange of labor for money, or maybe you're in a beautiful position where you have investments or you have other ways of money coming to you, think about how you feel. What do you want to experience more of, less of, differently? What goals do you have within livelihood? What kind of impact might you create with the livelihood that you have? Maybe you just give yourself a number 1 to 10, how thrilled you are with your current livelihood. And it's just for you to gauge as a self audit of where you're at. And all of this is designed to open up reflection. Maybe you feel really good about livelihood and nothing immediately comes to mind. That's beautiful too. This is an exercise in noticing what is. A few more seconds here to think about any notices that arise as you think about livelihood. And perhaps there's even a celebration piece of what you've created in livelihood, maybe created differently from your family or from your parents, maybe differently from people around you. Maybe it's a goal that you set out for yourself years ago that you've now achieved, and how wonderful that is. And using this as an opportunity to celebrate, to acknowledge, and to ask what next. Okay, we'll move on to second category here, which is lifestyle. And so this is beginning to think about how you spend your days. What does your home look like? What is your style, your space, possessions, maybe travel and adventure trips that you want to take, experiences that you want to have with family or friends or by yourself, gifts that you want to be able to offer. So thinking about anything in lifestyle that comes to mind. Just some examples that I've heard people share in the past are maybe a 4-day work week. Maybe it's a 2-day work week. Maybe it is being home in time for dinner with family every night. Maybe it is taking one trip per year with your friends for a week without family or kids or partners and having this beautiful space with each other. Maybe it's having time for a new hobby. So a reminder of some of the initial questions were, what if fear didn't exist and you could desire anything? Right? Fear even to dream, fear even to write down or say out loud. What would be amazing to experience in lifestyle? Maybe there are friends or family or people that you've read about who have incredible experiences that would be audacious or bold to write down. Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, takes all of her friends on a trip once a year in her private jet, and she doesn't tell them where they're going. She just tells them what climate to pack for. And I think this is such a beautiful lifestyle, travel, adventure experience to imagine, to desire, to plan for, to have that time and space to celebrate friendship, to have continuity, and to do that year after year, and a sense of adventure and surprise to create that for people that we love. Okay, our next one is health and wellness. Thinking about healing, whether there's a personal healing journey that you're on emotionally, physically, or otherwise, thinking about fitness, food, rest and relaxation, mental health. What is it that you desire to experience in this area of your life over the coming months? Is there a different way that you want to feel when you wake up in the morning? I have persistently stiff back that I've been trying to figure out what I can shift and change, and whether that's yoga or a different bed or moving into my muscle fascia and the subtle body first thing in the morning. So that's noticing what it is that our bodies are saying to us, because our bodies are constantly talking to us about what it is that we need. And beyond that, to think about what it is that we desire. Maybe rest and relaxation is uh, a friend of mine, she and her husband trade off every couple of months. One of them gets to go on a solo retreat for the weekend while the other takes the kids. And they spend 2 days in a hotel in the same city, reading, writing, working on creative projects just by themselves. That's a self retreat that they offer to one another while the other carries the responsibilities for those few days. And what a beautiful partnership to create that space to honor each other's creativity, honor each other's need for a relationship with self beyond our external responsibilities. Maybe with food, there's a desire to eat in a different way or spend more or less time. I often trend towards how do I spend less time thinking about food? But some people find that is a beautiful way to meditate, unwind from the day, transition from work into home life, especially when work and home life is in the same space, to use food in that way. So thinking about what it is that you desire to experience in any of these areas in the coming months. The more specific that you can get with these, the easier it will be to start to create goals from this exercise. We're really in the brainstorming phase to move into goals and then next steps. Getting really specific, I would love to experience running 5K without stopping to walk, or I would really love to experience joy moving onto my yoga mat first thing in the morning, because I've created this habit of engaging with my mornings in that way. Our next category is creativity and learning. And this might be outside of work, it might be inside of work, it might be in relationship, artistic and self-expression, where you get to truly express yourself. And this one I think is so, so key, because when we talk about burnout, a lot of times we default to thinking about overwork of just too many hours and at work too many hours, when more often burnout can come from a lack of fulfillment or a lack of purpose, that we're not sure what the point of all of this effort is, or we don't feel a sense of agency that we own the work that we're creating, and that our desire to self-express, to use our lives as our greatest artistic expression in some capacity, uh, when that feels stymied, can lead to burnout. So thinking about what would you love to experience in artistic and self-expression? Maybe there's a project that you want to launch and design at work. Maybe there's my friend just bought a Cricut machine. I'd never heard of these before. They're fascinating. It's like a printer on steroids, and you can 3D like print and draw and cut and all the things that I don't know how to do. But it's a super machine that probably takes just as long to learn how to use and to actually use, but it's beautiful. And she's now handcrafting all of her birthday cards from now until Kingdom Come. And it brings her so much joy. And so thinking about where are there opportunities for you again to return this to this idea of childlike wonder, joy, creativity, permission to dream. What hobbies did you have as a kid that would be so fun to return to? Or new hobbies that would be beautiful to explore? I have yet to do it, but pottery has been recommended to me. Find multiple friends lately seems to be the growing trend, which I can see as a very mindful activity, a time for reflection, and you come away with something that you have created with your hands and the joy of that. Our next section is relationships and society, thinking about romance, friendship, family, community, causes. What would you love to experience in these areas of your life? Now, sometimes our complaint or frustration can be a great starting point. It's our non vision, which will reflect us to what the actual vision is. So maybe it's that I'm single and I'm complaining about being single. That means I would really love a loving partnership. And what would I love to experience in partnership? What is it that I'm really craving? Maybe the complaint is that I have an amazing group of friends and I haven't branched out in a really long time. So maybe the desires that I would really love to experience meeting new people in my city or in new communities or maybe through a new hobby. So sometimes starting with the complaint and giving ourselves permission to complain and to notice what that reveals. What does the complaint actually reveal about what we desire and the vision that we have in relationship with someone or a community? Maybe you think about what causes are really important to you that you have an opportunity to go explore, whether that's uh, primary school education, access to clean water, sex trafficking, refugee work. Maybe it's something local and it's equitable access to education or housing policy. Think about what causes that you're really fired up about and might spend some time going out to experience, hey, how could I get involved in this? And we're just planting the ideas, right? We're feeding our brain with the questions worth answering. I imagine this is a very limited time to come up with a comprehensive list for each of these categories. So my invitation is to spend some time over the coming days reflecting back on it and continuing to add to these lists of what else would I truly love to experience in each of these areas over the course of this year. Our next one here, and I believe this is the last one, is spirituality and faith. So this is your faith practice, your religion, maybe it's your relationship with your inner self, with uh, coming into that sense of peace, interconnectedness. What would you love to experience in this area of your life, whether it is deepening, exploration, community, knowledge, kinship? What would you love to experience in this area of your life? Beautiful. I start with inviting you to write it down on paper because I find that sometimes when we are asked to share it, it will limit or filter what we're willing to write down. So, first step to write down and giving yourself free permission to dream, to play, to explore, to write down all of the bold, audacious things. And whether bold and audacious means a private jet, taking your friends on vacation, or maybe bold and audacious is what if I said no to going out once a week because I really would love to spend time just with myself, reading a book and saying no. And that seems bold or audacious. So that's by self-definition to give yourself permission to write down the bold and the audacious. And the second step, if you want to take that risk, is to share it. Share some things either in the chat or with friends after this of, hey, here's some things that I came up with and generate some momentum and some traction that way. This writing down in this space can be a beautiful initial generative space to come up with ideas. And without implementation, sometimes it can just sit there. And we flip back a year from now and we find those notes and smile of, wasn't it wonderful when I had that idea? And then what? So an easy next step is to share with someone. Okay. So looking back at the notes that you just had, my request now is to circle the things that stand out the most to you. So maybe volunteering at a new organization is a lovely idea and your time is already constrained. And so that's something that's beautiful to note. And maybe what you're most excited about is to create a ritual of a friend date with your best friend who lives in another city. Maybe it is to bring forward this really creative idea for a project that you have at work. What is the thing that really lights you up when you look back across these categories and circle 4 or 5 of the ones that are most exciting to you as you look over those lists? And my next question here is, if you imagine that you already had all of these things, like it's done, it's happened, it's happening, it's continuing, it's no more effort is required. What else might you give yourself permission to desire? And I would look specifically at the items that you just circled. And if you already had that, then what next? A lot of times we limit ourselves in what we can conceive of. So, as an example, I might say, could you conceive of making $1 million in your lifetime? All kinds of things could happen. I could win the lottery. I could found a company and make that uh, multiple different outcomes. And then maybe I ask, could you conceive of making $1 million in the next year? It's a bit tighter. I'd have to get really intentional about that, really thoughtful around where that's coming from, who I'm partnering with, what the idea is, what risks I'm willing to take. And then if I said, could you make $1 million today? Ooh, really tough, unless that's already happening, right? So we're saying a new $1 million. And if there's not a funnel for that already, somewhere in between, and maybe the equivalent for you is 100 million. Maybe the equivalent is finding a partner or moving cities. Somewhere in there, our brain has a cutoff and says, nope, not possible, not for me, not on that timeline. And so the idea here is to try to break through that wall. And that wall is in different places for all of us. That wall of possibility. And to try to break through that and say that, okay, what if I already had this? What if I took half as long to create that thing that I desire? What might that look like? How might I shift? How might my strategy or my approach, my way of being shift? What if I took twice as long to create that result? What if I removed urgency and pressure and stress and I said, it's okay if? We can break through that wall in a number of different ways. And to hold space for asking the question and bringing awareness to what emerges when we do ask those questions of what do I want? And then what else? What more? And on what timeline? Beautiful. If you've been engaging and writing and thinking, you've just done the hardest part, which is to show up, to put pen to paper, and to write down ideas. There's no perfect in this exercise. There's just creation. And what Anne Lamott in her book Bird by Bird calls shitty first draft. This is your SFD of your vision of what you would love to experience in each of these areas across your life. You can go back to this, you can add to it, you can expand upon it. Creating a vision is both an event, something that you have just done, declared something, and it is a process. As new data emerges, as you try something out and you find that you want to shift, you want to grow, you want to expand. But important to create that vision, to create that decision. The root word of decision is to cut away or to cut off. So we're declaring, I want this thing, which means by default, I do not want this thing. So if I declare that I want to write a book in the next year, then by default, I'm creating time and space for that, which means I am saying no to an opportunity to be on a board or to volunteer for an organization or to write a weekly newsletter for another organization. That when we declare our vision, we cut away that which does not serve and allows us to create space for what it is we truly desire. So we're not going to go too deep into this today, but just to acknowledge that sometimes when we say these things out loud, feelings come up, whether that is fear or discomfort, or the pesky judge that emerges to say, you can't do that, you can't have that, that's not possible. And those voices may be quieter or louder for each of us. They may have a certain tone to it that sneakily sounds like a neutral fact, but is actually this pesky judge trying to keep us safe and revert to fear, which is a human mechanism. It's beautiful, great for survival. I see a lion, I should feel afraid and run away. And in this case, to notice whether that fear serves you, whether fear is helping you create a life that you want, helping you move forward and expand, or whether in this case you might choose to root instead into love. A lot of these beliefs are hardwired into our brains. We're making tons of decisions every day, and the brain is looking for shortcuts. If risky, then fear, then don't is a common shortcut. And so we get to create new shortcuts and decide that if new, if different, then exciting, then opportunity, then I make a new decision. That we get to decide what it means. So noticing, just to give space briefly to notice if there are things that might keep you from action, from implementing some of these things. Perhaps it's lack of clarity. We've just done a broad sweeping vision exercise. Perhaps it's fear of judgment. Perhaps it's fear of getting it wrong and failure. To notice what it is for you that might get in the way and call those out ahead of time, just to notice. And then decide what might you choose instead. And maybe I'm going to choose to confide in a friend that I have this really exciting vision. Maybe I'm going to set a commitment to read a book about this topic or to have a follow-up conversation. Maybe I'm going to create that first step towards realizing that experience that I would love to have, whether that's setting up a separate account to save for that new car for the parents, or maybe it is drafting out the pitch for work for that new project, that first step. The belief is just a thought you keep having. And if you want new beliefs, choose a new thought and choose it again and choose it again and choose it again until it becomes the belief. And most importantly, to take immediate action. There's a half-life to enthusiasm. So if anything you just wrote down created some activation, some buoyancy, some energy in your spirit, to implement action as quickly as you can. Some ways of doing that are to tell somebody, teach somebody, commit to some action, and take the action. So the faster that you can implement, the faster you build momentum and prevent this from being yet another workshop you attended one time with some pretty notes that got buried deep in a journal somewhere. And to give voice, give life to these dreams that you've just written down and give them a chance at coming to fruition. I really love the idea that everything in the world exists because someone first thought of it. Someone first thought of a chair, of a musical instrument, of a book, and then they told someone about it. They shared it out loud and took that risk. So there's dream and risk taking involved in anything that exists in the world. And so for anything further to exist, we also get to dream and tell someone. And again, to think of this as creating that alignment between external responsibilities and internal desires. If we can move our effort and our energy into alignment with what it is that we truly desire, and to build these new neural shortcuts of when I don't know what to think about, when my brain is passively running in the background, what is it that I want it to default to? To think about experience, to think about my spiritual life, my relational life, and to create these new shortcuts. And I'll close with my favorite quote from Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh: "No mud, no lotus." So if this process feels messy, that's the beauty of it. It's putting out the salad center of ideas to come up with what lights me up. And maybe we got there today, and maybe we didn't quite get there. And there's an opportunity to go deeper as you move through the rest of your day, as you prepare for bed tonight, as you have conversations with friends and classmates and colleagues in the days to come, to think of what a beautiful question we get to ask ourselves. What do I want? What do I want to experience? And what do I want to create for myself and for those around me? So we've got a couple of minutes for Q&A. I'm also going to drop, I'll stop share here. I've got a PDF workbook if anyone would like to create, use a workbook to actually write some of these goals into like a goal planner to create sprints and action steps. So I'm going to drop that in the chat to share with everyone. And then I believe we can see if there are any questions or things that people want to go deeper on or clarify. So that's a link to that workbook if anyone would like it. And I'll close there, and so grateful for everyone who participated and joined today.
Fusion, as she mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box. We do have someone that asked, can you repeat the motto that you shared?
The motto. Which motto? Was there, I'm not sure who asked that question, but if they have, you could share in the chat or maybe, no, no mud, no lotus. Yeah. Yeah. And if anyone is interested in like new to meditation or mindfulness, one of my favorite books in life that I recommend is from Thich Nhat Hanh and is The Miracle of Mindfulness. It's a really quick, easy read and a beautiful introduction to what it is to be mindful, which is really to know what you're doing while you're doing it. So one of his favorite stories was around Plum Village, which is the village that he created in France when he was exiled from Vietnam and lived there until he died a few years ago, is that he would go around and ask people, what are you doing? And the point was not to check up on anyone, but just to help them as a reminder, what he called a bell of mindfulness to remember, I am washing dishes, to call ourselves out of the thought traffic of where we lose ourselves and just to know that in this moment, I am on a webinar, I am speaking, I am breathing. This mindfulness to doing what we're doing and being aware of what we're doing while we're doing it, like washing the dishes. Instead of rushing to finish the dishes, we're aware of the soap, of the hot water, of the texture of the dish, that we gift ourselves with our own presence throughout our day.
Someone share, I struggle to quiet the shoulds. Any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. With the shoulds, I really love to start with acknowledging and the idea of what we resist persists. So if we acknowledge what are the shoulds and spend some time in reflection, journaling out what are the shoulds that are most prominent for you that are coming up, where might they be coming from, what might they reveal around fears, and where that's trying to keep you safe, right? Our brain, our body is designed to keep us safe. So this recurring thought of shoulds is not intentionally to create harm or suffering for us, but rather to create safety. So to honor and acknowledge, okay, I'm feeling these thoughts, I'm having these thoughts for a reason, what might they be? And the second step I would say is forgiveness, the power of self-forgiveness. I forgive myself for believing that I should, and fill in the blank, and to handwrite this, which I know sounds like an exercise you might give to a child, and also we give those exercises for a reason to engage with the words that we're saying, so it doesn't just become a thing that we say. So I forgive myself for believing that. And then the key one, and I'm just going to drop my email in the chat here if anyone needs to leave early. Happy to answer questions or do a follow-up. A link will go out for a free bonus follow-up call. If anyone would like to go deeper into this, I'm offering a 30-minute bonus. Let me see if I can grab the link. I'll grab that in a second. So if anyone would like to go deeper, ask more questions, talk about some of the ideas that they came up with and how to implement, I'm happy to share that space, would love to. And so briefly, should acknowledge the should, offer forgiveness. I forgive myself for believing that. And the third one, and this is key, the new belief is. So the new belief is, I want this, or I can do this, I can choose. And the key there is not just to reverse it, like I should get a job. And so the reverse is I don't have to get a job. I think that's not going to do much for the brain, but to really expand on the idea of I get to take my time exploring my next step and choosing intentionally with what I would really like to invest my time and my energy in, because my worth is not does not lie in my productivity. I do not owe my labor to this system with urgency. I get to pause. I get to choose intentionally. So this is the expansion of that new belief. So with those, acknowledge the should or the whatever belief that is that's causing limiting suffering or mental suffering or limitation. Offer forgiveness. I forgive myself for believing that. And the third one, the new belief is, and to really expand on that new belief. And I would invite when I work with clients one-on-one to even handwrite the new beliefs and then handwrite again with the non-dominant hand and then place that list, maybe the list that you wrote with your dominant hand so it's legible, somewhere visible that you can read it repeatedly. And this is that idea that a belief is a thought you keep having. So if you can increase exposure, increase repetition of that thought because you're seeing it every morning, then you're going to start to shift those beliefs from the oppressiveness of I should into the freedom and expansion of I get to. And I will grab that link real quick if anyone wants to grab that from the chat. And then I believe it's also going out with the email on Friday, but I'll put it here in the chat in the meantime if anyone would like to sign up for that. Or just shoot me an email if you want to keep in touch, join my newsletter and get updates about future opportunities. I'd be happy to. Any other? I'm just taking a look at the next question here. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I see there's so much that you're carrying in not having a job and feeling the weight of that with what you want and wanting to support your kids and a relationship, having a lot of hurt and grief that you're navigating. If the link is not, I think you can just go to the homepage and then there's a pop-up where the link is at the top for the vision creator. Yeah, I think with when we have compounding challenges or hardships or emotions, it is even more key than to slow down and to start to honor the different emotions that are arising and to think about support systems. So what resources can you create and access for yourself, whether it's in relationship, whether it's coaching, therapy, friendship, to acknowledge some of the emotions that are getting in the way of clarity. So if we think of putting on mindfulness is much like putting on glasses. And when we don't have the glasses on, the world's a little bit foggy. What is the next step? How do I navigate grief? How do I find what job I want? Where do I find the job if I don't know what I want and everything is foggy? And so mindfulness being to slow down and to come into just this moment. Can we take some of the pressure off of having it all figured out and to start with this moment? Can I breathe deeply in and deeply out? That there's a bit of spiritual triage that we get to engage with when there's a lot going on. So I would say starting with that immediate needs. How can I meet my own immediate needs? And then what resources exist around me to support me in moving through and creating some clarity out of the fogginess, out of the chaos. I'm so glad that this was valuable for people. Thank you, Jenny and Sybil. Really happy to have so many people join today.
We do have one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up for this afternoon.
Beautiful. How do you suggest creating opportunities for early success? You suggest 4 or 5. Is it okay to start more slowly, 1 or 2? Absolutely. I would say early success is so great. Get those quick wins in order to generate more momentum. So I would start even just with one action. So thinking about all of the ideas that you've come up with today and choose one next step. So maybe that step is booking a call. Maybe that step is downloading the vision creator and filling it out. Maybe that step is telling a friend, hey, I just spent this hour really thinking about my life and here's what I came up with. So to choose one, there's many steps, but to find one thing that you can commit to and by when you want to do it. And that's really key because it's easy to tuck things away in the back of our minds that I will get to at some point. But if we don't have a time in a day on it, now we have to expend additional brain power to recall the thing versus let me add it to my calendar. Let me text a friend and make the commitment. Let me put an alarm on my phone. So my invitation with whatever it is uh, that is most thrilling to you to move forward on, choose that one thing. Beautiful. Choose one action step, and then you can always build upon it from that. Wonderful. Yeah. So happy to share. Um, really lovely. Okay. I think we're out of time now. Is that right? But if people have more questions, um, then lovely. I'm happy to answer over email or spend time on that bonus call.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much, Jen, for leading us through that really enriching, interactive activity. To wrap up today's conversation, I do want to remind everyone that I will be sending a follow-up email by the end of the week sharing Jen's contact information if you want to schedule something with her, as well as, additional resources and recording of today's webinar as well. But when you are leaving, you will be prompted to complete a survey. Please complete that survey. That will help us determine what future topics that you would like us to bring to you during our Mind Your Career series. So please be sure to complete it. And lastly, just thank you for joining us this Wednesday afternoon. I know you all had a lot going on during the day, but thank you so much for, choosing to be with us this afternoon. And we hope to see you again during our next Mind Your Career session. Again, a huge thank you to Jen. And I hope you all have a great afternoon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.